Here are some notes on solving one-step equations. First, we're going to write out the steps. Step number 1 is to determine the operation done to the side with x, or whichever variable we're using. Second is to determine the inverse operation. We're going to define that in a minute. Step 3 is apply the inverse operation to both sides of the equation. And step 4, check your answer. So let's define what inverse operations are. So the opposite operation of adding would be subtracting, of multiplying would be dividing, and of squaring would be square rooting. So we've got plus and minus, times and divide, square and square root. They are opposite or inverse operations. We have x plus 8 equals 3. We are adding 8 to x, so the inverse operation would be to subtract 8 from both sides, which gives us x equals negative 5. Next example, we've got 3 plus x equals negative 2. So that 3 is positive, so we're going to subtract 3 from both sides, giving us x equals negative 5. Example 3, we have x minus 5 equals 2. The inverse operation to subtracting 5 would be to add 5 to both sides, so we get x equals 7. For the next one, we have negative 4x equals 20. The negative 4 and the x are touching, which means that they are being multiplied. So if you don't see a plus or minus in between, that means that they're being multiplied, and the inverse operation would be to divide both sides by the negative 4. That 4 is not being subtracted, okay? So if the negative is in front of the 4, it means it's negative 4 times x. That's times when they're touching. Example 5, we've got x over 7 equals negative 4. That means x divided by 7, so we're going to multiply both sides by 7 over 1, or basically just 7, which gives us x equals negative 28. That big fraction means to divide, and then whenever we use the parentheses with the 7 over 1, that means that we're multiplying by 7, which is the opposite of dividing. You don't have to put the over 1 part. For example 6, we have x divided by 3 equals 2. So this is another way to write divided by. So the opposite would be to multiply by 3 on both sides, giving us x equals 6.